Knox, okay, your prediction, right? So you, as the Georgia fan, like you said, you're talking about we, right? Y'all have lost eight of y'all's last nine to the Alabama Crimson Tide, okay? So what do you think? What do you think is going to happen in this game? Okay, we're not getting this game in the SEC championship. We're not getting this game in the playoffs. This is a regular season game early in the year. Neither of these teams are a finished product, and they could face each other again. But when you're looking at this matchup early in the season at Alabama, who do you think takes it? Number 2 ranked Georgia Bulldogs are traveling to Bryant-Denny to face on the number 4 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide. Both teams looking pretty different this year. Of course, offensively, the Georgia Bulldogs are replacing a lot of weapons at the skill positions. We'll talk about that in a minute. And of course, you can't talk about Alabama historically without talking about Nick Saban. Of course, he's gone, retired. They brought in one of the best coaches in college football, I think, to replace him in Deboer. What he was able to do at Washington in the playoffs with defense that really probably shouldn't have been in the national championship, probably shouldn't have got them there, but that's just a testament to how good of a coach he is. But Knox kicking it off with the Georgia Bulldogs this year. Of course, a lot of expectations going into this season. Carson Beck, a Heisman candidate. Mike Bobo in his second year back as OC. When you look at this Georgia offense through the first couple of weeks, what are some key players, some key takeaways that you get looking at this team?
No, I'm still really excited about this Georgia team, even after that Kentucky game last week. They had a pretty bad injury to Tate Ratledge, one of their better offensive linemen, and protection wasn't quite as good as it should have been in that first half. In the second half, they definitely shored some things up. They gave Carson Beck some more quick throw opportunities as opposed to trying to make him push it down the field. They started running the ball a little bit better, and it's just, for whatever reason, Georgia has trouble in Lexington. They've had trouble for the past 6 or so years there. For whatever reason, when we play Kentucky, I say we. I'm going to go ahead and say I'm a Georgia fan, so might be a little bias in there. But yeah, whenever Kentucky comes to Athens, we normally take care of business. Did so last year. Didn't turn out that way this year. But going into this game against Alabama, I think it's really, really important that Georgia holds this football. They have to establish the run game. It's going to be extremely important because what Alabama does is they score, and they score very fast. They have some high speed on the outside. They run the ball really well, effectively to the outside. They run a lot of zone reads with Jalen Milroe. They're an extremely explosive offense. So the best thing that we can do for that defense is keep them off the field, especially considering that Georgia is very thin up front of the defensive line. Yes. You saw it towards the end of the Kentucky game. They were starting to get very gassed and very tired. Brock Vandagriff was able to make some plays with his legs towards the end of that game. So it is imperative that UGA, their offense, finds a way to run the ball and stay on the field.
Yeah, Knox, 2 great points. I'm glad you pointed out 2 of the big key points I wanted to hit on with this Georgia team, the O-line and the D-line. First off, with the O-line, like you mentioned, pretty banged up, trying to, piece together a solid group. And you could tell the run game had an effect on that. And as a result, the entire offense as a whole wasn't operating as smoothly with the absence of that run game. Defensively, this D-line, the front seven, of course, talking about a Georgia front seven, they're elite, right? But with that being said, this is not the Georgia defensive line that we have seen in years past. Like you mentioned, they're not as deep. When you think of a Georgia D-line, you're thinking of 5'6" interior guys, 5'6" edge guys. They don't have that this year. Now, what they do have in the front seven is 2 returning linebackers, and I think, C.J. Allen, in my opinion, we talked about him a lot last year. C.J. Allen, instinctive linebacker. You could tell the development from year 1 to year 2, and of course Smile Monday as well. So they got the guys up at the front seven, but both O-line and D-line, the consistency has not been there through 4 quarters. Like you said, getting pushed around by Kentucky's O-line towards the end of the second half, and the Georgia O-line just couldn't get bodies moving to get the run game going. And Georgia has lost 3 of their 4 receivers from last year, right? Brock Bowers, Ladd McConkey, they're both gone. Carson Beck, of course, still has the arm talent and all of these things, but you can tell, they have Dylan Bell and a couple of other guys that they're, trying to supplement this production offensively with. But, Knox, when you're looking at this receiving core and the skill position players, where do you think this production is going to come from to make up for Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey's departure?
It has to come from Dominic Lovett first and foremost. He's going to be our number one receiver. He has been all year. He's going to be the guy that gets the majority of the targets, 12 plus yards down the field. That being said, with the shift in football in general, moving to a short game, it's imperative we get the ball to guys like Dylan Bell, get it to Frazier out of the backfield, give it to Delp on screens. Like I said earlier, because we shouldn't be trying to push the ball downfield on Bama. Their secondary isn't great, but they can make some plays. They can be ball hawkish at times. Making a mistake and then giving it to Jalen Milroe in this extremely explosive offense of Alabama would be a terrible mistake. Kirby Smart knows that. This game is going to be a grinder, or at least he's going to try to make it that way and keep that time of possession 5, 6, 7 minutes per drive. That has to be the goal. Obviously, you can't run the ball over and over again. That's simply not plausible. You have to run these short screens to Dylan Bell, get them on the outside, give them 7, 8 yards. Maybe you make a big play here or there, but that has to be the key. Getting it to everybody, spreading the ball around, and then if it comes to a 3rd and 8, if the run game isn't working out so well, then you give it to Levitt on the outside.
Yeah, I like all that. And, one thing about Georgia's offense with Todd Monken, like you just mentioned, getting the balls to players. Not thinking about plays, but thinking about players, right, as a play caller. Mike Bobo, in his return, I think he's gone away from that a little bit. Specifically in the Clemson game, Georgia was still behind the sticks on some of those 3rd downs. Now, last year they were the best team in the country on 3rd down, 55%, but that's because it's 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, right? Very, very manageable. But whenever you're getting stuck behind the sticks and it's 3rd and medium, 3rd and long, you're really limiting your playbook there. So I agree with you. Got to think of players, not plays, to really stretch this Alabama defense and put a lot of stress on them as far as who's getting the ball and where is it going. Transferring to Alabama, you mentioned it, Jalen Milroe with this explosive offense. Knox, this kills me. You get a mobile quarterback and you try and put him in a West Coast spread style, and then you wonder why he's not having success. That's exactly what we saw with Jalen Milroe when he first, took the job. Fast forward a couple weeks later, they changed the offense, and since then, Jalen Milroe has been an absolute monster. Came into himself as a player, and like you mentioned, not only are they using his legs as a threat in their run scheme, but they are a vertical pass attack team. They are going to run. When you get sucked in, that's when they throw it over the top for 50, 60 yards. You mentioned some of their explosive playmakers. Ryan Williams is only 17 years old. His run after the catch is insane. So when I'm looking at this Alabama offense, they're going to have to run it through Jalen Milroe and keep the mistakes at a minimum. Now, we talked about Georgia's O-line being patched up. Alabama's had a patched up O-line too. So this is going to be a big test for this Georgia front seven. And I know Kirby Smart coming off a bye week. If you and me see this stuff on film with the front seven, Kirby sees it, right? So I'm going to be interested to see how this Georgia D-line and defense attacks and puts pressure on Jalen Milroe, because he is such a dynamic player. Like you mentioned, you can stop him for, 2-3 plays, and then he's going to bust it and make up for all that on the very next one. So the contain from Georgia's defense is going to have to be key when I'm looking at Jalen Milroe, because something about Kalen Deboer being the head coach at Alabama has turned Jalen Milroe's deep ball pass accuracy up like 7 notches. It's really opened up a whole new avenue for this Alabama offense, Knox.
It's almost like they took a page out of Josh Heupel's book. You look at the Alabama offense, it can look a lot like Tennessee's a lot of the time. But, yeah, you're totally right. Jalen Milroe has improved so much as a passer in just the last 8 months. It's unbelievable. You go back to that SEC championship game last year, and you saw how Alabama beat Georgia. Obviously, you had a few questionable calls and outside of that. But outside of that, though, this Georgia front seven could not get any pressure on Jalen Milroe whatsoever. He was sitting back there thinking about, what he's going to be doing in a couple of years with his NIL money. He's just back there just chilling in the pocket. And the Spies had nothing for him. So when it comes to the key for Georgia in this game, for somehow stopping that explosive Alabama offense, it's going to have to be C.J. Allen is going to have the game of his life. He is going to be the one that's going to be the spy on Milroe. He is not going to play a snap in coverage. He's going to have his eyes on Milroe at all times. They're going to have to stack the box with at least 6, no matter how spread out that Alabama offense gets. Can't blitz them because those guys are way too fast on the outside. Jalen Milroe's got a very fast release. He's very accurate this year. So you've got to play conservative defense, and C.J. Allen has got to be a key playmaker in this game if Georgia wants any chance at stopping this Alabama offense.
Max, great point there. You mentioned the box for this Georgia defense when going against this Alabama offense with the threat of the run at quarterback. Georgia historically is going to run with an even box, and you know that's an abnormal thing as a defense. You always want to have +1 in the pass and in the run, and with the talent that Georgia has and that they recruit, the scheme allows them to just run with even numbers. But whenever you have the running quarterback, that changes the complete dynamic of the run game. And you mentioned it. You're not going to be able to blitz him and pressure him much because he has those legs. He has the experience now of where to go with the football. At least so far this season is what we've seen. A lot more confident and confidence from Jalen Milroe. And one last thing, speaking about Georgia's DBs, they are replacing 3 defensive backs that they lost to the draft last year. Okay, now they have the depth and the athletes, but nothing will replace those actual reps on the field. So just like you said, Georgia's defense has to keep everything in front of them, play conservative, rely on their guys doing their jobs and running and hustling to the football and getting it done that way. But Knox, okay, your prediction, right? So you, as the Georgia fan, like you said, you're talking about right? Y'all have lost 8 of y'all's last 9 to the Alabama Crimson Tide, okay? So what do you think is going to happen in this game? Okay, we're not getting this game in the SEC Championship. We're not getting this game in the playoffs. This is a regular season game early in the year. Neither of these teams are a finished product, and they could face each other again. But when you're looking at this matchup early in the season at Alabama, who do you think takes it?
Man, this is something I've been mulling over for the past couple weeks. I was also looking past Kentucky, and that's exactly what the Georgia Bulldogs were doing last week. It's really hard to say. I think Kirby Smart and this Georgia team is going to try to make this as low-scoring game as possible. I don't think it will work out that way. That Alabama defense does have playmakers that can cause turnovers. Carson Beck does make good decisions with the football. He's very clutch on third down. Hopefully that'll be able to stretch the game. But there's just no way you're going to be able to contain this Alabama offense from putting up at least 24 points bare minimum. When I'm looking at this matchup and how Georgia matches up against Alabama, I think it's not good for them considering how thin they are up front and how fast Alabama is on the outside, how quickly they can score, and how this Georgia offensive line has looked at as of recent. So if I take my heart out of it, I'm probably going to at least take Bama on the points for 2.5. I think I'm going to take Bama on the points. But in my deepest heart of hearts, I think I have to go with Bama in this game. They're simply too explosive. Georgia has too many problems up front on both sides of the ball. If that Georgia offense makes one mistake, Alabama can punish that almost immediately. I don't like the matchup. However, I'll still be pulling for my dogs, of course.
That surprises the shit out of me. I did not think that the Georgia Bulldog faithful was going to go with the Crimson Tide, but very, very good reasonings for all of that. When I look at this game and I look at Jalen Milroe and their banged-up O-line, Jalen Milroe, when pressured, will be a little inaccurate. Now, when he has time, like we talked about, he's been putting the ball on the money. But with the patched-up O-line that Alabama has had, the pressure when it's gotten to Joe Milton has caused him some issues. Also, like you mentioned, Brock Bowers. When I look at Brock Bowers versus Jalen Milroe, specifically in a big game like this, not so much when, talent is going to reap its head or reap its benefits more, when you're playing in South Florida compared to a Georgia. In a big game, give me Carson Beck. Like you mentioned, for the third down conversion rate, for the accuracy, specifically in the short game against both Clemson and Kentucky, the 2 games I watched, he's able to fit these balls in the tightest windows, intermediate and short range. And we know about his deep ball threat or his deep ball accuracy. With that being said, with the speed, you mentioned the speed of Alabama, and that's right, but I think that this Georgia front seven and this Georgia defense is still one of the fastest defenses in college football. And you know this more than anybody. Georgia, whether Kirby Smart coaches it or not, and we know he doesn't, they will take games off versus teams that they know that they can go and beat. If they don't respect you, you're going to be able to tell.
Absolutely.
You're going to be able to tell with the result that they put on the field. With that being said, coming off a bye, We both know how hard Kirby Smart coaches these guys. Not saying Deboer is not, but Kirby's in a league of his own, in my opinion, when it comes to being a motivator and getting these guys to buy in to the team. With all that being said, in a close game away in the SEC, I'm taking Kirby Smart in Georgia, man.
Wow.
I always said I would never bet against Nick Saban in Alabama. That era is over, man. Nick Saban's gone. I think Kirby Smart is the next greatest coach to be in college football for the next decade or 2 or 3 to come. With all that being said, guys, I'm taking Georgia to win in a very close game at Bryant-Denny Stadium. But that's going to do it for this one, guys. Let us know what y'all think in the comments. Anything that you think we got right or wrong, let us know. Make sure you subscribe and like so you can get notified whenever we post some more videos, and we will see you on the next one. Peace.